Welcome to Lightbulbs, the Entrepreneurship Club podcast. Today we're chatting with my classmate and dear friend Jim Tang. Jim's had an incredible run. He was part of the founding team at Improbable and helped grow it from just 4 people into a tech unicorn. Over 11 years, he led product teams, launched a new programming language for the metaverse, and even helped secure a multi-million-dollar deal with NetEase in China. Before LBS, Jim studied computer science at Cambridge and later returned to supervise undergraduates. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Danny, it's my pleasure.
So how are you finding the MBA program so far?
Well, I find it is very different to what I thought it would be. I have learned so many soft skills and I met so many incredible people in here. So it's definitely worth it. So recently, I have met a few great mentors in the MBA program. So one is from the Entrepreneurial Mentor in Residence program. His name is Jack. He's super experienced with startups, AI, and investment. And the other person is Dr. Lewis from the LBS Experts in Residence program. He gave me so much knowledge on how to handle with people relationships. It's incredible.
I'm glad you're making use of a lot of those resources that are provided to us. I've been for a couple of those talks, and there are some really inspiring entrepreneurs in residence. I know you've been working on a lot of things. So let's go right to the start. Tell me how you got involved with Improbable.
Yeah, it was 2012. Lovely summer evening. I was chilling in my room when I got a call from a friend. He said, "Hey, Jim, there's a student startup from Herman, the CEO. Do you want to join them?" Oh, I know that guy. Yeah, have a look. And I then went there, have a talk with the other founders, and they convinced me. So I didn't go for the job I was going to, and stayed there for 11 years.
What was the job you were going for?
It was a software engineer job for a tech startup in Cambridge. And that company, at that time, raised a huge amount of money, and they became a unicorn startup. And so I was going to work for them, but instead I worked for own startup instead.
So you basically, either way, would have resulted in working for a unicorn.
Yeah, but to be fair, unicorn does not mean anything. It's just a step towards delivering something valuable for people. Some people wear it as a badge. I mean, if the company delivered value, whether it's unicorn or not, does not matter that much.
I agree. And you can be a unicorn company and burn a lot of money, or you can be a small company that's actually making money, right?
100%, yes.
So tell me a bit more about Improbable. Who does Improbable serve? How do they serve them? What is the typical customer for Improbable?
Hmm. So initially, Improbable was building a new type of game engine that can allow game developers to build huge game world that can never be done before without the technology. So our initial targets customers were very ambitious game studios trying to build a new genre of game. So one of the studio was Bossa Studios based in London. And together we built a game called Worlds Adrift. It's a beautiful game where you can build flying ships piece by piece. Each piece on the ship is a physical object. So the cannonballs can literally knock out a piece of panel out of the ship. It's a very technically challenging and ambitious project. And people love the game. It has 9 out of 10 reviews in Steam. Sorry?
Did you ever play that game as well?
Yes, I played too much that game. It's on that game I spent most of the time over that period of 5 years. The game is an open world game, and there's no storyline, no script, so you can do whatever you want. And my favorite thing to do is to hook onto other people's ship and try to interact with them in a way that has never been planned by the game designer, namely grabbing their ship, take control over their ship.
So there's a term for that. I used to play a lot of Skyrim
Yeah.
more than 10 years ago. It's called emergent gameplay. So
Exactly.
that's when you use mechanics that weren't necessarily planned, but you use it for another purpose. And I know people did some really, really crazy things in that game. And it sounds like the Improbable engine is even more powerful. So I can only imagine the kind of games you made on that. So
Yeah. So initially the product was a game engine. You can use it in combination with Unreal or Unity. Then later we pivoted because the market demand is more for a slightly different type of game where you want a lot of people in one place at one time. So rather than having many players spread over the world, such that you can barely see any other people, we want 10,000 or more people in the one place at one time, like a football match or concert. And recently, I think they just broke the Guinness World Record on the most number of people in the game.
okay, so it became a way of hosting games. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's still a game engine.
Hmm.
However, it's focused on making games or experiences that allows many people all see each other or interact with each other in a dense area. And the customers are still game studios or brands who wants to use this to make their event branding, marketing events. We, as Improbable, will do a joint venture with these companies to help them build such new experience.
Okay, great. And so that was basically the evolution of Improbable from when you started to years in. So how did the company culture itself evolve over the years? And how did your role evolve over this time?
When I joined, I was one of the founding engineers. So I was focusing on deliver the product at the highest technology standard. I've worked for around 7 to 8 years in that role. Then we decided to expand to China. So I took my time away from the engineering role and wear a different hat to help them to set up the China office. It was a great challenge because of the culture difference, time zone difference, and how we dealing with customers was at that time uh, it's a young team, so it's not very mature. Then later on, I moved on to a product manager role where I help the company to decide the pricing model, to find the product market fit, to do the positioning, and evolve the product team to build the product team from scratch. So that's my role: engineer, then China, then product manager.
How long were you based in China then?
I was working on that for between 1 2 years. I was based in London, and the team were in China, so I sometimes fly there,
Mhm.
and most time spent in London.
Okay. And this was Shanghai?
We had two offices in China, yes. So one is in Shanghai, the other one was in Guangzhou, the
Okay.
south part of China.
And that leads perfectly into the next question. So, part of that task of expanding into China was securing funding, right? And you and your team together managed to raise a significant amount of money from NetEase in China.
That's right. So after our SoftBank round, we flew to China to pitch to the Chinese game makers. People are joking, there are three game companies in China. So the biggest one is Tencent. The second one is called NetEase, and the third one is called All the Others combined. So we went to pitch the top two, Tencent and NetEase. NetEase, they flew a team of engineers from a different city to meet us. Two engineers, we were explaining all the details of our technology and try to convince them that we are not building something that uh, we were building something that's solid and very innovative. It was great. We did live demo where we have to coordinate with our London office to show the demo. Very high pressure situation at the time, because if anything went wrong, the deal could be means with being cancelled or withdrawn. But luckily, everything went well. And
That's
I
great.
remember the guy from he's a mid-aged Chinese man. He worked his way. He started as a support engineer, worked with all the way to the top and on the entire gaming business in NetEase. He said, "Yeah, so the game used to be player to the world, and what we are trying to build is not just player to the world, but also world to the world, entities from the world interacting with each other. And yeah, it's a perfect summarization of our pitch. So I think he got the idea, and eventually we secured the investment.
And that's also, again, touching on emergent gameplay as well, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So, what tips do you have for others raising money with their own businesses?
I think my one thing when I was discussing with our CEO was giving a startup too much money too early is the best way to kill a startup. Because when you have the money, you don't have the urgency and you don't have the hunger and urge and the humbleness to satisfy your customers' need. It will fuel complacency and all the other bad things such as premature growth and premature expansion. So it's very important to find the right time and right amount to raise.
Okay, I think that's a good tip. So, raise just enough money and bootstrap your way through with that money. I can
Exactly.
understand having too much money means you're frivolous with your spending.
Yep.
And
And
so,
so the money will buy you time, but will not buy you customers or your product market fit.
and any specific tips for raising money in China?
In recent years, raising money from China is getting harder and harder because of the geopolitical issue. And if you raise from China, one of the biggest reasons is you want to go into the China market. If you're raising the fund from the US dollar fund from China, you may get some money, but you might not have as much business support if your main business is outside China. Even just for reputation, you might raise a lot of money from a fund that no one heard of. So you cannot add your credibility by telling people I raise money.
Okay. So this whole time you were working in this very fast-growing company, uh, did you have any sort of mentors or even any buddies at the company that you looked up to and that were there to kind of guide you and help you?
Yeah, 100%. One thing I learned about mentor is the mentor does not have to be perfect. He or she just need to be something that in one aspect that you can learn and copy their behavior. I remember when I was dealing with our customer in China, I learned from one of our product manager to manage their expectation. And he demonstrated how we can, even though we have some features, we should play with the level of maturity and the delivery timeline such that we have enough time to iron out any teething issue with the customer. I also learned one of them had an EMBA from LBS, and he was a great mentor to me. He explained to me how to convince people by explaining the why, the reasons, before asking for something from other people. And I've been using these methods constantly, and it worked out great for me.
Do you feel like this person influenced your application for the MBA program at LBS? I mean,
Absolutely, yes. Well, before I applied MBA, I asked a lot of people. Everyone who did MBA or EMBA said it's a great thing to do. It changes your view of the world. It gives you framework to reason about things and to change your perspective. Everyone has not done MBA. Tell me it's completely waste of time. You will learn more on your job. So I delayed my MBA for 2 years, trying to learn from the job. And then eventually I reached a stage of bottleneck. Then I recall our conversation with my manager who had the EMBA, and I realized that it is time to move on to actually to study MBA and getting some new perspective for me.
and how do you balance personal and family commitments with your work at Improbable and now with the MBA? Because I know you have a wife and 3 kids.
Yes, I have 3 very young kids, and my wife also works full time. So it's incredibly hard for me. For example, this interview, I can only do it after 8 p.m. when kids are sleeping. I also live 1 hour away from the LBS campus, so it takes me 2 hours to commute. I think I just had to sleep less. I only sleep 5 hours a day. You have to sacrifice something. I tried to at least have 2 hours between 6 and 8. These 2 hours dedicated for my kids. And the rest of the evening is mine. I'm also doing a startup at the moment. It's even harder, so sometimes I have to skip some of the lessons in order to finish off some startup tasks. There's no silver bullet to solve it. I'm a person, I like to do everything perfect, but unfortunately, it's not possible.
So I'm very excited about your startup. We'll come to that in just a moment. What habits or routines do you have apart from sleeping 5 hours a night that help you stay focused in your work?
Yeah. Um, One thing I'm trying to do is technology fasting, meaning no work or technology half an hour before I go to bed. Well, if I have only 5 hours of sleep, I'd better make them count. And I realized for me, if I still work until the point of go to sleep, I will have a very low quality sleep. So I at least book half an hour of no mental stress before sleep.
Have you tried magnesium as well? Magnesium helps you sleep really well. It's something I've been having more recently. I also avoid technology about half an hour to an hour before bed, and I try and read instead, and I feel like that puts me in a relaxed mental space. I find fantasy works really well rather than, biographies or nonfiction. So, in relation to Improbable, what was the biggest lesson you took away from your 11 years there?
Hmm. I can give you a couple big ones. So the first one is always listen to your customers. Sometimes product managers think they have a vision, think they know the best way for everyone. But in reality is, well, there is only one Steve Jobs, and the rest of us have no clue of what the customers want or what the right way is. So instead of making this up and have a illusion of confidence, of knowing everything, it's important to listen to the customer and meet the need of the customer. You may want to build a platform to make a couple of customers very happy before going for a platform. because the investment to build a platform is huge. And if you get it wrong, it's very difficult to reverse the changes. For example, in software, you have APIs. And once you give an API to a customer, you have to support it almost indefinitely. So the cost of maintaining it is huge. If you're just making one customer happy, then you can work closely with the customer, you can change the API relatively cheaper than making a platform that serves everyone. Also, another one is when you decide to release a product, have a plan to take it off from market. Because unfortunately, some people have to live through the entire life cycle of a product, from releasing, launching it, to sunsetting and take it down. And well, you can imagine the sunsetting and taking down part is not so glorious or pleasing, because other people's companies' livelihood depends on your platform. So you have to think very carefully before you launch a product. Think what would happen if you take the product off the shelf.
That's a very interesting perspective, one that I would not usually hear. But it's the lessons you might learn from a failure as opposed to a success, right? So a bit counterintuitive. So looking back, is there anything you would have done different at Improbable?
Yeah, for me personally, I would be more vocal. I was trained as a computer scientist. I'm quite introvert. I used to be. So it is also very hard for me to argue with someone using my second language, English. So most of the time in meetings, I tend to just listen and observe. If I were to do it again, I would definitely be more vocal, because there is this risk of group thinking, and there is a risk of this what's called pluralistic ignorance, where you think you had a bad idea, but actually you're right. You should just share it. I learned that from my MBA class, and I wish I have done that earlier in my career.
Okay, great. And speaking of your career, you are working on an AI startup. Tell me more.
Yeah, my AI startup, it is still in stealth mode. The idea is to help working parents like me to better manage the life of kids. You may be surprised, but people spend hours and hours figuring out what the kids need to bring to school tomorrow, and which day is a library day. Should I bring swimsuit tomorrow because the teacher sent an email 2 weeks ago saying it's cancelled, but I can't really remember. And every school sends their things in PDF, so it's a nightmare to search for what's going on. So our startup, the idea is automate this process using AI and LLM. But the accuracy is the key here, because if anyone nowadays can build a AI that takes some documents and give you some answers. But imagine when tomorrow is a fancy costume day, but then your daughter or son forget about it because AI gets the date wrong. Or even worse, it got the date wrong such that only your children wear the funny costume, right? That would be even more disaster. And only you need a few such mistakes that people will lose trust of your entire system. So what we're trying to do here is get super high accuracy on these kind of things. And that turns out to be very difficult.
Yeah, great point over there as well. There'll only be more AI startups starting with similar missions. So it's all about being as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
So how has your MBA journey so far shaped your career decisions and outlook on entrepreneurship?
Well, to start with, I have become much more confident about things that are not technical. So as I said, I was a software engineer by trade, but I didn't have much knowledge about finance, managing people, communication, presentation. And the MBA gave me a really good environment and platform to learn all these things. So for example, I was taking classes for interpersonal dynamics, where we had the CFO of Deutsche Bank came to our lecture to explain what kind of things a leader would need. I also joined the Toastmasters Society, where we had come and present and evaluate, give feedback to each other. Actually, Danny, I think you told me about this Toastmaster program.
Yeah, I went the first week. I was able to talk the first week I went there. Then I went 2 other times and I did not get called on because it was so popular. But it is a very good program.
Yeah, I joined almost every Tuesday for the first term, and it's a great program. Yeah, now I'm confident when talking about raising fund, finance, brand values, positioning. It just gives me so much framework in my toolbox to be able to handle every kind of situation.
I can attest to that as well. I've come here with a very open mind, and there have been so many opportunities to grow. So for me, becoming community rep and then being able to take our stream to the Battle of the Streams, not being very sporty in my teens, but leading a lot of sports persons to victory. Then now also organizing teams for the MBAT. I have a TED Talk at the end of this month as well. I feel like if you come here with the willingness to really push yourself and explore new areas, there's a lot of room for growth. And I would recommend the MBA just for that, let alone any areas of study you would want to do. So we'll move on to a couple of quick questions.
Mhm.
What is one book you'd recommend every entrepreneur read?
I would say the Lean Startup might be, if only one book you have to read. 12 years ago when we started, for every new joiners, we literally buy a copy and let them read when they join as a welcome pack. The things mentioned is still very relevant in today's environment, especially with AI, which makes your ways to develop prototypes way more faster and easier. It's must read.
And that is by Eric Ries, I think.
Yes, I don't know if I have it. No.
What's one misconception people have about running a startup?
Well, it depends on how much literature you have read about startup. One common misconception is people go to startup is for money. It's not. Statistically speaking, people would get much better paid when they work for a big firm. Imagine you only sleep 5 hours when you work for Google, right? Imagine how fast will that get you promoted. And there are some studies says, okay, you either go for money or you want to be the king to have control. But actually you don't have control either, because the skills to scale a startup and the skill to keep the company going are very different skills. And most founders, they have the first type of skill and they don't possess the second type. So if they want to be king, the company will not do as well as someone else who are trained to become a manager. So why do you do startup then? You have to really enjoy the industry you're working on. You have to think you're solving a problem that is actually worth solving and making a big, good impact to the human being. I think that's why you should do a startup.
Great answer. If you could give one piece of advice to your past self at the start of your journey, what would that be?
I might tell myself to do the MBA a few years earlier. Yeah, I did it when I was in mid-30s, and that is, I think, the 2% of the percentile in age group. If I did a bit earlier, I think I would have more time to, well, A, benefit from what I learned by applying this in my career, and B, I might have less of a family burden, kids. If I were to start my own startup maybe 5 years ago or 3 years ago, I might be able to spend more time on my entrepreneurship adventure.
Okay. I kind of wish I applied for the MBA earlier as well. But, we made it here. I think that's something.
Yeah, it's never too late. I mean, I met people who are in their early 50s in their EMBA program. If these people are still learning, right? So why shouldn't
Yeah.
we?
So you already mentioned about your AI startup. What's next for you outside of work? Any personal goals or projects on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm recently quite interested in 3D printing, and there are so many fun projects that I can do because one of my personal project is my kids. So I want to develop them, get them ready, prepared for the future where AI is probably smarter, more hardworking than human being. So how would they prepare themselves? And I think to get them into AI earlier and get them to be able to build things earlier will help them in the future career. So one thing I'm planning to do is get them a 3D printer and let them start to program. And recently, I had my son, who is 7.5 years old, build a game in AI just by himself in cloud. Yeah, and he's very excited about his game design, and the AI was guiding him, and the end result was actually a playable game, and he was playing on it for a good half an hour. Yeah, more AI to kids.
That's impressive. Future game developer right there.
Well, yeah, if there is still a job called game developer in the future.
So, where can our listeners follow your journey and stay connected?
Good question. I'm currently building my online presence, but I still haven't spent too much time on that. I think you can follow me on LinkedIn, Jim H. Tang.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here, and thank you.
Thank you for the invite, Danny. It's always a pleasure.